It's Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. It's December 7th, 1941. The sky is blue. The waves are gentle. The American Pacific Fleet is chilling like it's Sunday brunch, because it is Sunday brunch. Sailors are doing laundry. Officers are drinking bad coffee. The battleships are parked in neat little rows like shiny steel ducks. Everyone's relaxed, which is a huge mistake, because just past the horizon, Japan's first air fleet, also known as the Kido Butai, is already in the air. Hundreds of bombers, torpedo planes, and fighters screaming straight toward Oahu. In the real timeline, they hit Pearl Harbor like a thunderclap. Total surprise. Disaster. But in this version, the Allies have radar, and they actually pay attention to it. Let's talk about what that means. In real life, there was a radar station at Opana Point. Two operators, George Elliott and Joseph Lockard, saw the incoming blip. But when they reported it, their officer told them, "Don't worry, it's probably just American B-17s. Spoiler, it wasn't. But in this alternate history, that report doesn't get ignored. The call goes up the chain. Alarms go off. Planes scramble. AA gunners wake up with hangovers and a lot of questions. Within minutes, Pearl Harbor is in full DEFCON what the heck mode. So what does the radar actually do? Radar in 1941 was primitive, sure, but it could spot incoming formations from up to 130 miles out. That's enough time for fighter squadrons to take off, battleships to seal hatches and prep AA guns, ground crews to move planes out of easy target rows, and officers to stop sipping coffee and start yelling into radios. In short, surprise is gone. Japan loses its biggest advantage. Instead of sneak attacking a sleeping navy, they're flying straight into a hornet's nest that's fully awake, mildly hungover, and incredibly pissed. And here's where it gets even crazier. Let's say 25 minutes before the attack, radar spots the incoming wave. That gives enough time for at least 50 American fighters to take off. The Japanese are 6M0s, fast and agile, but they weren't built for long dogfights. They relied on surprise and fuel economy. And now they've got to dogfight P-40 Warhawks and P-36 Hawks, who actually have altitude and energy advantage. American pilots aren't elite aces yet, but when you're not being blown up on the runway, your odds go up real fast. And the battleships? They're not just floating targets anymore. Instead of sailors getting blasted while playing cards, now they're running to battle stations. Hatch doors slam shut. Anti-aircraft crews grab ammo. Fire control crews actually turn on their targeting systems. It doesn't make Pearl Harbor invincible, but it turns a massacre into a fight. The USS Nevada, in our timeline, was the only battleship that got underway during the attack. In this version, let's say 3 more get moving. Now you've got massive ships pulling out of harbor, dodging torpedoes, and returning fire. The Japanese air crews planned for a shooting gallery. They walked into a shooting war. And here's where the butterfly effect really kicks in. In real life, the United States lost over 2,400 lives at Pearl Harbor. 8 battleships were damaged or sunk. Nearly 200 aircraft destroyed. But with radar giving early warning, that death toll drops drastically. Let's say the Allies still take a hit. Maybe a few bombers make it through. But instead of chaos, the defense is coordinated. AA fire is concentrated. Fighter pilots actually engage the enemy instead of exploding on the ground. Casualties drop. Morale skyrockets. And the headlines change from "America sucker punched into war" to "America intercepts attack. Japan repelled." Big difference. And then comes Japan's worst nightmare. They wake the giant early. In our timeline, Japan had 6 months of momentum after Pearl Harbor. They swept through the Pacific, taking Guam, the Philippines, and parts of Southeast Asia, while the Allies scrambled to rebuild. But now, American carriers like the USS Enterprise and USS Lexington are fully alert and operational. Ground forces at places like Wake Island and Midway are put on immediate notice. Production shifts into overdrive, but with less panic and more precision. The sleeping giant isn't just awake, it's caffeinated and loaded with high explosives. But that wasn't even the worst part for Japan. Because with radar proving itself this early, the United States doubles down. Radar goes from weird science box to priority tech overnight. Suddenly, radar's everywhere. Installed on ships, placed on Pacific Islands, mounted on bombers and fighters, networked across fleets with better communication. By 1942, American forces are tracking Japanese movements with terrifying precision. The Battle of Midway still happens, but now the US is even more prepared. Maybe they sink all 4 Japanese carriers before the first American ship is hit. Japan's naval edge? Gone. Meanwhile, back home? Americans are furious, but proud. Instead of mourning, the story is one of resilience. The country still unites. War bonds still fly off the shelves. But the shame of being caught off guard doesn't exist. And that changes the mood. Congress passes military funding bills even faster. Recruitment surges. Public confidence is sky high. Everyone wants to join the team that beat back the surprise attack. Pearl Harbor becomes a rallying cry, but not a scar. More like, remember how we wrecked their ambush? Yeah, that. With radar now saving the day at Pearl Harbor, the entire Pacific War starts tilting off its historical rails. And Japan? Well, Japan is in trouble. Because without a successful surprise attack, their entire strategy crumbles faster than a paper torpedo in a monsoon. You see, the whole point of Pearl Harbor was to knock the United States out long enough for Japan to conquer the Pacific, set up shop, and then say, let's negotiate peace. Instead, they just poked the world's angriest, best-funded bear. And the bear saw it coming. Let's talk early consequences. In this version of history, the American Navy loses fewer ships, saves more aircraft, and holds control of the Pacific far more aggressively. That means reinforcements arrive faster in the Philippines. Carrier groups stay operational. Island garrisons like Wake, Midway, and Guam don't just hang on, they bite back. The Japanese Imperial Navy? Still dangerous, still massive, but now it's bleeding earlier, harder, and without the one thing it relied on most, momentum. By mid-1942, the tone has completely changed. Historically, Japan dominated the first 6 months after Pearl Harbor. They captured Hong Kong, Singapore, the Dutch East Indies, and had a death grip on the Pacific. But now they're stalled. Why? Because American radar turns every potential ambush into a giant, nice try moment. Japanese planes approach, spotted, fleet movements, tracked, surprise landings, intercepted before they even drop anchor. Suddenly, Japan's high command starts sweating through their uniforms. The carrier group that was supposed to dominate the Pacific? Now it's under constant threat from radar-guided American bombers and radar-directed naval guns. Let's just say those shiny decks on the Akagi and Kaga don't stay shiny for long. And now the US starts punching back. Early. In our original timeline, the Doolittle raid, that bold, let's bomb Tokyo with B-25s launched from a carrier stunt, happened in April of 1942. In this timeline, it happened sooner, and it hits harder. Why? Because American planners are feeling confident. Pearl Harbor wasn't a disaster. It was a demonstration, a proof of concept that radar works, and Japan can bleed. The raid still does minor damage to Tokyo, but it sends a thunderous message. You thought we were weak? Cute. Back at Midway, things go from bad to uh-oh for Japan. In real life, American codebreakers cracked Japanese plans and ambushed their carriers. It was brilliant. But imagine if, on top of that, they had land-based radar ringing the island. Now the US doesn't just know the carriers are coming, they know exactly when, from where, and with what. And when Japan launches that coordinated air assault, it gets shredded mid-air. Zeros fall like lawn darts. torpedo bombers never reach the water. By the time Japan's fleet tries to retreat, 3 carriers are burning, and the 4th is limping home with a smoking flight deck and a lot of regrets. And here's where things get spicy. Because now, with Japan on the defensive, by late 1942, the Allies get bold. They launch island-hopping campaigns earlier. Instead of waiting until 1943 to go after Guadalcanal and the Solomons, they move in by late 42. And this time, every beach landing is covered by radar-coordinated naval bombardment and early warning for counterattacks. Japanese troops, who were used to night raids and jungle ambushes, suddenly find themselves spotlighted by early warning spotters, lit up by flares, and shelled into next week. But that's just the Pacific. Let's talk global impact. With the US Navy holding its ground and Japan losing territory faster than they can explain it to their emperor, things in Europe shift too. Why? Because the US doesn't need to dump as many resources into rebuilding its Pacific fleet. That means more ships, more tanks, and more aircraft heading to Europe sooner. Imagine D-Day with double the naval support, or the invasion of North Africa happening with better coordination and radar-aided air support. German U-boats? Tracked. Luftwaffe raids? Spotted. Hitler's vibe? Worried. Now let's talk tech escalation. With radar proving itself so dramatically at Pearl Harbor, the Allies start accelerating radar innovation like it's the Manhattan Project. Mobile radar units pop up in trucks, ships, submarines, even strapped to early aircraft. British and American scientists get extra funding. New radar systems can now detect altitude, speed, and range with better accuracy. By 1944, Allied aircraft are flying night missions with radar lock-ons. Bombers fly in stacked formations with precision guidance. Naval fleets operate like floating command centers. Meanwhile, Japan's radar development, still stuck in the "wait, how does this box work?" phase. The tech gap becomes a tech chasm. And that brings us to the big question: how fast does the war end? Historically, the war in the Pacific ended in August of 1945 with the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But in this alternate timeline, Japan starts losing hard by mid-1943. Carrier strength shattered, airfields cratered, industry disrupted. Could the war have ended a year earlier? It's possible. Maybe by mid-1944, Japan sues for peace or faces invasion long before the bombs ever drop. And maybe, just maybe, the atomic option never leaves the test lab. Fewer civilian deaths, fewer firebombings, no mushroom clouds, same victory, less horror. All because one radar station spoke up and someone finally listened. So let's summarize. Pearl Harbor, defended. American fleet, alive and kicking. Japan, stalled, bleeding, panicking. Radar, MVP of the war. Pacific theater, shorter, smarter, and shockingly one-sided. Global war, shifted hard in the Allies' favor. All thanks to a glowing dot on a radar screen. And a guy who didn't say, ignore it. And now the real question. If you could put one piece of modern tech into a past battle, what would you pick and who would you give it to? Subscribe, please.